Planning Board meeting. The first item on the agenda is to introduce the Planning Board members. So let me start over on my left with Susan Ripley here. Sitting next to Susan is Peter Goodwin. Mike Cotter is the Vice Chairman of the Planning Board. To my right, John Thurston. Then Brad Harriman, who is the Selectman's appointee to the Planning Board. And Julie Jacobs, who is an alternate. Julie, it seems that Vaughn is not here. Could you be the sit-in for her?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. Okay, also Tavis Austin is here and Mary Jane Shelton. The first item on the agenda is LP Gas Equipment, Inc. And before I start that, let me just quickly go through the procedure. First of all, we hear from the applicant, who will explain the application to us and go over the various zoning issues. Once he's finished, if Tavis has something that he wants to add, he can do that. During both presentations, the Planning Board members can ask questions. Once we have all of our issues together and we need to determine if the application is complete, if it is, someone will make a motion to that effect, and we vote on that, and then at that point in time we can open the public hearing, so any member of the public can then comment on the application. At the end of that, we'll then, okay, Vaughn Dugan is here, so Julie, we don't need your services right now.
That's fine, I hand off the ball.
Thank you very much for being so gracious. Okay, so once we finish the public hearing, Planning Board members will then decide if they want to act on the application. If they do, close the public hearing and we'll have a conversation among the Planning Board members and hopefully decide on some of these issues tonight. Okay, so LP Gas Equipment, Inc., Wolfeboro Oil Drive, tax map and lot 161-14-03, case 2021-05. This is a site plan review for a fuel distribution center. We've already seen this application before, and so I thought that it would be helpful if I submitted the Planning Board minutes, the application materials that we reviewed in April of 6, 2021. And also, I've got the minutes from the ZBA hearing, which took place after the Planning Board meeting, and they reviewed it, and a variance was granted. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Board. Scott Lawler from Norway Plains Associates, here representing LP Gas Equipment, Eastern Propane and Oil. With me here tonight is also Bill Massey from Eastern Propane and Oil, as well as Bob Coluccio from Web Engineering, who Web Engineering was involved in the design of the tanks and the fueling systems. LP Gas Equipment owns property tax map 166, lot 114-3. It's located on Wolfeboro Oil Drive. They purchased the property in November of 2019. It consists of 5.2 acres, and it lies within the Pine Hill Road Development District. It's located within the town of Wolfeboro's business park, and the lot is currently vacant and wooded. Wetlands near the development were delineated by Daniel Coons, certified wetland scientist, and there were other wetlands on the parcel that we depict that is outside of the developed area that are per the original subdivision plans. The land generally slopes from west to east. Also on the property is a town of Wolfeboro water line easement that runs along the eastern property line, and there's a gravel access driveway. Town water and Wolfeboro electric services are located in the Wolfeboro oil right-of-way. LP Gas Equipment is proposing a diesel distribution facility. As such, they received a variance granted by the Wolfeboro Zoning Board of Adjustments to permit above-ground storage diesel tanks and a fuel distribution facility. They are proposing two 10,000-gallon above-ground tanks located within a fenced area. Accompanied with that will be a 30 by 32 canopy that will be over two fuel dispensers. Underneath the canopy is a 36 by 40 concrete pad with positive limiting barriers to capture any potential accidental spillage of fuels. Paved access to the facility will be off Wolfeboro Oil in a kind of two entrance or circular entrance and exit. We've designed this to accommodate tractor trailer deliveries as well as smaller trucks that are getting fuels. The fuel tanks are a double-walled tanks, and they're located to the rear of the development on concrete pads, again within a fenced enclosure. There's emergency shut-off systems that are set up, and the dispensers are predetermined that they only discharge approximately 100 gallons before they'll automatically shut off. Fuel dispenser will be open to Eastern propane trucks and clients of Eastern Propane and Oil with the use of a key fob. The fuel dispensaries will be available for these people to take delivery 24 hours a day. LP Gas and Equipment will have surveillance cameras set up that'll be used to record the visitors as they come and go from the site. Canopy lights have been shown on the plan on pole mounted with down shielded lights over the paved areas, and then there's some canned recessed lights in the canopy. Stormwater from the development will be collected off the impervious surfaces by the use of some catch basins. That stormwater will be directed to a stormwater maintenance management system consisting of a sediment forebay and a small wet pond, which will treat the runoff before discharging via an outlet structure. The catch basins that will be installed on site will have oil and debris traps that'll act as secondary containment for any spillage of fuels that might have exceeded or gotten past the limited barriers, and they'll be trapped in the catch basins before being discharged into the stormwater management system. We are proposing a small 10 by 12 building on the site, which will be used for the electrical systems and for the storage of incidental equipment associated with the operation of the facility. We will have we're showing a generator for backup power. So during power outages, the facility can continue to open up and work, and this is good for the emergency personnel in town to be able to have another means of getting fuel during power outages. The facility is unmanned. There will not be anybody at the location. So as such, there's no domestic water or sanitary sewer needs. We are having some, underground electric will come in off of Wolfeboro Oil to the building, and then from there to the fueling systems. Excuse me. As part of the design of the fuel tanks and dispensing systems, WEB Engineering has been working with the Department of Environmental Services to gain approval of the design of the tanks and the dispensing systems. And I've been told this evening that they've gotten a verbal approval from DES on the design as submitted. As part of that, they had to provide DES with a comprehensive spill prevention, control, and countermeasures, a plan that's been reviewed and approved by DES. And additionally, there'll be some spill kits and emergency contact numbers on site for people to be able to utilize during any potential spillage. With that, that's really a very general overview. Either myself, Mr. Massey, or Mr. Coluccio would gladly answer the board's questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Tavis, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't have anything new to add to that. I will point to the review that you have in front of you, just so the board is aware of the main criteria that you're looking at during the site plan review process, and I have some recommended conditions of approval if you get to that point.
Okay. All right, and questions?
Barry Muccio says, could this site accommodate expanded use for town or school district use? If they had a key fob, could town trucks get their diesel at that spot?
If provided with a key fob.
The other thing is that, there is that pocket pond. And this month of July, we've had 14 inches of rain come down on us. Is that pond big enough to sustain that?
We've designed the pond to accommodate storm events from 1 inch through the 50-year storm event, and it achieves and does not overspill its berm. So it has been designed in accordance with the NHDES regulations for that type of stormwater management system.
Are there any changes since the last time we saw this application to the site plan?
No, it's essentially the same application. We modified the narrative a little bit based upon the Zoning Board of Adjustments review and approval, and there were some minor adjustments. For example, we added a concrete pad that the vehicles delivering fuel will park over as a requirement by DES.
Other questions?
Yes, Madam Chairman. There was one change between the original application and the current version, and that's to accommodate the decision by the ZBA to limit access by the members of the public to holders of key fobs. Has LP Gas figured out how that system is going to work yet?
I'll let Mr. Massey explain to that.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. That system is what we currently
Can you
use.
identify yourself?
I'm sorry, Bill Massey from Eastern Propane and Oil.
Thank you.
I apologize. The key fob system is what we currently use at 30 Center Street. It will be the same system with the same key fobs.
And those, beg pardon, those key fobs are for Eastern Propane customers?
Yes, sir.
If you're not an Eastern Propane customer, could you apply for a key fob anyhow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When someone uses the key fob to get access to the site to fill up their tank with diesel, will the key fobs, does a key fob have a unique identifier which is recorded in your system so that one knows which customer accessed the system at what time on what day?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Massey.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to accept this application as complete.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, then I can now open up the public hearing. If there are any members of the public that want to speak to this application, now is the time to do that. Okay. All right. Planning board members, how do you want to proceed with this? Do you want to hear Tavis's suggested recommendations?
Sounds good.
Recommended conditions are just the standard conditions. Number one references the updated plan set. which would include everything that's in the file, the application materials, the planning director review, everything as part of the final set. Applicants responsible for payment of all recording fees. And once again, the complete package is all part of the approval should the board go in that direction.
Okay, and what about the bond for this? How will that be determined?
It's up to the board, as I understand it, to determine if you would like a security bond for any part of this project.
Okay,
And if yes, all the board needs to say is that the applicant shall work with staff to establish an appropriate bond under the regulations.
Why don't you add that as a condition if the board approves?
okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing now, and if somebody would like to
Sure, I'd be happy to
discuss this, or,
make a motion to approve if that's the board's pleasure.
okay.
Then I'll be happy to approve case number 2021-05, tax map 161-14, subsection 3, for a site plan review for construction of a fuel distribution center with the 4 conditions as enumerated, 3 of which are on the planner's review and the 4th added by amendment this evening.
Okay.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and
Seconded.
seconded. Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I have a comment that I would just like to say that this is, to me, very good because it is moving a diesel storage area out of the center part of town.
Thank you. Okay, and also, the variance just automatically goes along with the site plan approval, so, but you already know that, so. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Green Mountain Realty LLC, 38 Filter Bed Road, tax map and lot 203-15, and case 2021-14. This is for a site plan review, and this is for the construction of 2 accessory buildings. And go ahead.
Hi, I'm Paul from Norway Plains Associates. I'm here with Victor Druin, the owner of LLC. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, great. Okay, we were here, got full site approval, major site approval back in 2019 for the storage units. This building right there, that's in the light orange. And now we're here today to get approval for these 2 accessory buildings here. They were previously on the plan before. Both buildings, point here, this building right here is 40 by 80. This building right here is going to be 20 by 100. The impervious cover is the same as it was before. It's pretty much the same plan as we had before.
Okay. Any questions?
So I'm just looking at the setback lines, that one of them is completely black.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear.
The second, the long, narrow one is completely in the side setback line?
It's where the existing foundation for that building is.
Okay, it exists.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an existing structure.
Tell us again, what are the buildings going to be used for? Storing what?
Boats.
Boats only.
That's correct.
Is there any fire suppression in those, if something goes up?
No.
I didn't hear the question.
I asked him if there was any fire suppression, if one of the boats caught on fire, if it would be a full engulfed building.
No sprinklers.
Does that raise any alarms or anything? Did you not want to do it, or is it not prudent, or what's your position on it?
It's just, it was discussed and it was not, we're not going to add it to it.
Usually that's the purview of the fire department. If they require sprinklers, you would know about it when you're trying to get a building permit.
Yeah, fire code doesn't trigger, in my understanding, a sprinkler system on the building that size, and each of these are smaller than the boat storage units that were previously approved without fire suppression.
Isn't fire suppression in a building that size, which may not be heated, difficult to deal with?
Isn't fire suppression difficult where sprinklers aren't needed?
I mean, you know, if they're not needed, then, you know, they're not needed. But isn't it difficult to put in a fire suppression system in an unheated space because the pipes tend to freeze?
Well, I'm not quite sure where we're going down the path, but no, it would be a dry system, which would include a separate valve so that there wouldn't be water to freeze in the pipes, but there is a way to do it.
Surely this is something that's going to come up when he comes for a building code inspection. If you're required to have sprinklers, you won't get an occupancy certificate until you put sprinklers in. I'm not sure that we need to be thinking about that at this point.
Well, I was thinking about the wetland that's right nearby, so in case there was a fire, it would just go into the brook right there, so that's why I was thinking about it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, the previous approval said there was no outdoor storage allowed. So there should be, I would think that we would put the same condition on this.
I believe that was part of a condition that TAB has put together.
And the applicant is aware that that is in this list of conditions, a condition number 3?
Yes.
No outdoor storage?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It does raise a bit of a question for staff. I mean, it was mentioned earlier that the proposed buildings are only going to be for boat storage. I'm wondering if the board has a concern about it only being boat storage, because if the condition is no outdoor storage, there are many vehicles and pieces of equipment on the property that are not boats that may be perfectly suitable in the building, such as the 2 proposed.
Wouldn't those sorts of things be considered pertinent to the use of storage of boats?
Well, it says the condition is no outdoor storage allowed.
Correct. My question is if the board wants to make a stipulation that it only be boat storage in these buildings or any storage, barring volatile fuels. Let's not go down that path, but if somebody wanted to store hammers in the building, does the board have opposition?
Okay.
Hammers for use during the hammers for use during the conduct of the boat storage operation? Good Lord, why would that need any kind of a permit at all?
I'm just asking. When the applicant first spoke with me, it was not expressed that the buildings were going to be for boat storage only, yet that came up tonight, and I hadn't heard that. If the applicant's okay with it, I don't have a concern with it.
Well, if he starts to theoretically store hundreds of hammers for resale, that would be a different issue. He'd be in violation. But if he's just got the hammers that he uses for his business, they use such things in boat storage. I don't see any reason why we would need to specify boat storage plus items pertinent to that use.
Isn't anything allowed in the zone allowed to be a use? You know, hammers, whatever they are. You know, storage buildings.
Not at the moment, because right now the property is owned residential.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So the use that's currently there and proposed to expand with 2 structures this evening is coming to the board through a 1974 variance and the further extension through the site plan in 2019, neither of which were very specific to boat storage.
Variances weren't.
No. There's a long story of how it got to here. The short version of it was not expressly approved as boat storage. It was last presented in 2019 as boat storage.
Okay.
Is this going to be a concierge service where people get their boats the one day and you bring it back to them, or is this going to be a once a year type of thing?
It's not going to be once a year. They would drive their boat up, they would drop it off, service there, and then stored off-site down in this other facility as well.
But it's not going to be, I want to go out in my boat today and, bring my boat down and then take it back at the end of the day.
No, no.
Then should we approve for boat storage and accessory uses or something to that effect? Would that cover it?
I think, honestly, I think the board is covered if you approve it as 2 storage structures.
Right, right,
Okay.
yeah.
So as noted on your review project site plan, construction of 2 accessory storage structures, that is what we would be approving.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, I think this application seems to be complete. Does everybody agree?
So moved.
No, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. I'll second it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I can open the public hearing, but go ahead, John.
So how can you ensure that these boats being pulled in and out will respect the neighborhood? I've been down there. It's I've seen boats going in and out of that property. I was extremely disappointed. I saw another vehicle follow somebody in and almost get in a fight because they went skying past somebody else. It's very disruptive what I was seeing down there. And how can you ensure that you're not going to continue the way it's been going right now, and you're going to respect the neighbors down there?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, at all. I mean, we could only do the best we can. I mean, the nature of how people act is out of my hands.
Are you going to have the people that bring the boats in understand that it's a residential neighborhood and driving fast down there is not neighborly?
I think that, yeah, that's true. That would be the case. I guess you could, if people show up and they're driving fast, I'm sure that Victor or somebody of his staff would say something. I would assume there was complaints that they would handle it professionally. But if people are speeding up and down the road, I think that's kind of a little bit out of their hands.
Those are people that are going back and forth to that property. That's why I bring that up. I was a witness to it. I saw it happen. So I'm just asking you, I know there's people down there that were upset at the planning board and didn't want more stuff racing back and forth to happen down there. I mean, we're going to approve this application. People are going to be saying, you guys didn't do anything about what those guys do down there.
I think it's relevant to mention that all of the boat storage that's down there right now has been done by variance, so this board didn't do it. The use has been authorized by the zoning board.
Well, either way, whoever authorized the use, John has a point. We've all seen gigantic boats going up and down Filter Bed Road to the large facility at the top of Filter Bed Road. Question for you, what are the hours of operation of this going to be?
They still remain the same as last time.
Could you refresh our memories?
Yeah, on the site plan here. 8 to 5.
8 to 5. Is it Monday through Friday or 7 days a week? You'd better,
There's usually work going on Saturdays.
so Monday, Monday through Saturday,
That is correct.
from 8 to 5.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's always enforcement, and it's always, you know, if there's a complaint, the neighbors can call the police, and the police can go down and see if people are speeding. Otherwise, people do whatever they do. You know, there are a lot of rude people around. You know, unless they're breaking a law, there's really nothing you can do about rude.
I have a question. What is your estimate of the increase in traffic that will result from these 2 additional facilities being added?
I don't have an estimate right now. It'll probably be remaining the same as what it is now. The idea is
How
just
can that be?
what's happening now, they would just put the boats inside. Should be decreased because of the additional facility on Pine Hill.
So it is just for the season, they're being put away for the season, and you're saying that there will be virtually no increase in traffic?
That's correct.
I'm going to point out to the board, looking at the file from the 2019, there was no indication of boat storage. So while it may be that it's currently boats in there, the structure that was approved just says warehouse storage.
The variance says warehouse storage?
Yeah.
No, just question.
Yeah. So it may be that if enough neighbors become upset about boats that the property owner decides to store something else, but my guess is there's a lot of demand for boat storage. My thoughts on neighborhood traffic is it's probably better to have many boats in one area than to have every residential neighborhood having these boats navigate the roads. Just a thought.
Okay, any member of the public out there want to speak to this issue? Okay. All right, planning board members. And we hear Tavis's conditions for this. Oh, just a second. The design guidelines. One, did you have any issues with the design guidelines?
Well, the design guidelines are generally prepared so that we keep our in-town, downtown, you know, character. I don't think this is a location that has anything concern. So it's almost inapplicable because it doesn't, sorry. Yeah, affect the downtown area. Thank you.
So, what did you say?
The design guidelines don't really seem to apply in this area of town because the guidelines were put in place to protect the look of the downtown.
Okay, all right.
I'm only interjecting because you
I'm
can't
losing my
speak.
voice.
All right, thank you. Okay, go ahead if you've, go ahead,
Are we
John.
sure about that? If somebody else comes to us and says, oh, I don't have to follow the design guidelines because I'm not in the center of town, I mean, isn't this a little slippery? We don't have a parameter that we have the design guidelines in?
After last March, when the vote came through, everyone that comes to site plan needs to comply with the site design guide, or the design standards, which are in the staff review. That's why I put all of it in there.
I think, though, and I can't remember the language in the design review, I think we discussed whether or not it was visible or, you know, from a main road or part of public view as part of the guideline issue. This clearly doesn't seem part of public view.
Yeah, if you, beg your pardon, if you read just the opening couple of paragraphs of the design standards, you'll see that the intention appears to be to control the appearance of buildings in the built-up area, downtown area in particular, to make sure the buildings relate to streetscapes and pedestrian infrastructure, of which there is currently nothing here of that sort. So while you're right, they do pertain, I think they are, with this current application, kind of irrelevant. And since they are in site plan review, we can waive them. And I think by our discussion here, we are essentially waiving them. Unless, if Madam Chairwoman wants a motion to that effect, we can do that. I think it's clear how the board feels.
Right, yes, yeah, I think so, too. Okay, did you go through your proposed conditions?
Nope.
Okay, why don't you do that?
So the first refers just to the plan set, which is what everyone has in front. The second is requirement for submission of a Mylar. Third is the ever popular discussion of no outdoor storage being added to the plan that gets recorded. Applicant responsible for all recording fees, and everything in the packet becomes part of the approval, should the board make that motion. So there's 5 conditions.
Okay, and can we add a bond requirement? Do we need it?
Requirement for a bond?
Yeah.
Performance construction bond?
I mean, it's up to the board. Essentially, all of the site work is already done, so everything
Okay.
that would be bonded is functionally in place, other than the erection of the 2 structures, so.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I am too.
Everyone, okay, all right, okay. I'll close the public hearing. How would you folks like to proceed with this?
I just want to point out to the board that we are approving, according to the planner's review, the construction of 2 accessory storage structures.
Thank you. Okay.
If this application is approved, that is.
Okay. Anyone interested in making a motion?
I move that we approve case number 2021-14 with the 5 conditions proposed.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
And abstentions? Okay, all right, thank you, folks, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next one, Cosmic Cove LLC, Grandview Commons / Forest Road. This is tax map and lot 214-01-32 and 33, case 2021-15. This is a boundary line adjustment for 2 lots. Good evening.
Good evening, Randy Tatro, Norway Plains. I'm the surveyor of record for this minor lot line adjustment. The property is located up at the former airport location that was subdivided years ago by a reputable firm. And this is a minor lot line adjustment between the same property owner. It's a 0.2 acre lot line adjustment that actually makes the lots almost perfectly the same size. It conveys approximately 50 feet of shore frontage along the reference line from one property to the other, which is this property now is 1.95 acres, and it's getting about 0.2 acres, which gives them an extra 50 foot of frontage. The end result is they're both 2.3 acres. It's actually between 2 siblings. Will eventually be between 2 siblings. And the reason for that is to more evenly have the lots be more evenly amongst the family members. So originally when it was subdivided, it was approved by the state. There was topography, wetlands, slopes, so the state subdivision approval. This is a little bit of an odd situation where you have on-lot wells but off-site sewerage with common leach fields. So, and I included the previous reference plans in the packet for that clarity. So basically these lots, when developed, and this one is currently being developed as shoreline permit, and it's currently starting to be developed. The septic systems run off-site to common leach fields that are located more in what was the middle of the airport, and I provided those plans. So I asked for waivers to the general site conditions that we'd show on these maps for these size lots. And the rationale behind the waivers, and I can get into it more specifically if you guys have questions, but the rationale behind the waivers is there's already record plans showing that information. And in this case, even though one of the lots is getting slightly smaller by 0.2 acres, the septic system, or the leach field for that property, the septic tank would actually would stay on the property next to the dwelling. But the leach field, which is what the soils and slopes and wetlands lot sizing is made for, is off-site. So it's really not a factor in this minor lot line adjustment. The lots meet form factor, they're pretty square. And other than that, there was a question brought up at the TRC about the fact that this lot is currently has a shoreline permit and being developed. And the question was, how did that 0.2 acres affect the shoreline permit of record? And what the story was is they had always planned to do this lot line adjustment, so we did the base surveying for this job, and we didn't do the shoreline permit, we did the base existing features plan for it. So we already knew that they were eventually going to do this lot line adjustment, so we took that into account. The consultant that did the work took that into account when he figured the impervious areas, the unaltered areas, and so forth. The only thing that did come up that they couldn't take into account because it just passed in March was the supplemental stormwater feature from 15 to 20%, which we talked about at the TRC will have to be taken up at the building permit stage. Most likely they've got a full stormwater management by my review of this thing anyway, so they're going to have stormwater features. They were at 17.5, and I think this puts them at 19 with the lot line change. So they're still under the 20, but they're between the 15 and 20. So under your new stormwater things, they'd have to make one stormwater feature, which they're doing a full stormwater management plan, so that's going to be taken care of. But that's really doesn't affect the lot line adjustment.
Okay.
But for us tonight. So with that, I'd entertain any questions from the board.
Can you confirm that?
Well, I can confirm that and then add to it. The shoreline permit that was turned in showed an appreciably larger house than the one that's actually been issued a permit. So the coverage has actually gone down despite the lot even getting smaller. However, what they're finding in building the site, or what I'm noticing in monitoring the shoreline permit, is that the site actually receives a lot of runoff from other areas of the development. So what they're installing as part of their development is a series of, I'll say, gargantuan rain gardens to accommodate the existing runoff the site is already accepting, in addition to what their impervious cover is generating. So they are above and beyond compliance with the regulations at this point.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, I think I included an email or a copy of a letter, or at least we had it at the TRC, from, is it Headwaters Consulting that did the shoreline permit, where he states what I just previously said, that we took the lot line adjustment into account when he did the shoreline permit. So.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, are you pretty much set then?
Yeah.
And that was not in our packet,
Okay,
Randy,
and-
but that's okay.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, at least it's not in my packet.
Yeah,
I'd be
but-
happy,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'd be
I
happy
just
to
want-
move to approve the waivers as
Yeah,
requested.
okay, all right, and I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so with that, the application is now considered complete, so somebody would make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so let me open this up to the public. And I don't see too many public, so, okay, so we'll go back to the planning board. Any other questions, folks?
So I see from the old subdivision plans that are a whole number of wetlands in this area. So I gather that it's all about getting 50 more feet of frontage.
Yeah, it's solely, that had to do with equalizing the lake frontage amongst the siblings, Vaughn. There was wetlands mapped originally by White Mountain. They were redelineated, I know, on this parcel. This parcel hasn't been resurveyed at the present time, so it's just based on the previous, and it's being added to, so it's based on the previous approved plans.
So is there construction going down on the shorefront right now? Seems I've seen a barge down there for quite a bit, over a year and a half now. Is there?
Yeah, there's again, we did the surveying on this one, John, but, and we provided them with the base plans for this. Headwaters Consulting, I think they're out of Littleton, did the work for the shoreline permitting and the site, and the anything, I think that's a boathouse permit and so forth. They were the ones that handled all that. And again, we haven't done any work on the adjoining lot. This is just solely a surveying project, but to answer your question, I do believe it's currently under construction.
Yeah, okay, and also there are 2 or 3 barges that sort of park there, I think, at night, judging for my kayaking there. So
Is there onloading, offloading?
they seem to just sort of park there. I don't.
Well, there's an existing paved roadway with a cul-de-sac from the original, so they can access it pretty easily from the main road. But again, sequencing of construction, as Jim will tell you now, depending on when the structures are done and any of the stuff that has to do with the shorefront, is can be problematic depending on the time when something gets built and if they can get vehicles to the shorefront and so forth. So it tends to be some barge work when dealt with these.
Right, but yeah, there definitely is construction going on, right?
Just to that end, from the proposed pink line, if you will, all the way around that front is silt fence. So there is no positive connection between the barge and the site at that point. They might be landing there, but they're not offloading there.
Right.
This is one of the few shorefront sites, not to get off the boundary line adjustment, but they've actually left an entire ring of trees all along the shorefront.
Okay, anything else?
Would you like a motion?
Did you give us your conditions?
I can.
Okay.
The first one references the boundary line plan that everyone's been looking at. Second is for Mylar. Third, applicant responsible for recording fees. 4 is the standard, everything in the packet is part of the packet and the subsequent action. And then 5 is that the applicant is responsible for monumentation to be stamped and recorded.
Okay, all right, very good. I'll close the public hearing, and go ahead, Mike.
Move to approve the boundary line adjustment for tax map lot numbers 2141 sub lot 32 and 2141 sub lot 33 with the 5 conditions as delineated in the planning director's review.
Okay, good, thank you. Anyone want to second that?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
And abstentions. Okay, thank you, John. Okay, very good. Thank you,
Mary.
Randy. All right. Okay, the next one, Sumson Realty Trust, 20 Gateway, tax map and lot 201-36 and 39, case 2021-13. This is a special use permit construction in the wetlands buffer and wetlands setback. John just mentioned that generally we like to do a site visit before the application, before we hear the application so that we can go and view it. But I know this is a small one, so probably we can go without that one. But anyway, Jim usually appears at those site visits also in the past. So but we will continue that, but not with this one. So go ahead.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Jim Rhines from White Mountain Survey and Engineering, and I'm here representing Assumption Realty Trust in their application for a special use permit in accordance with zoning Article 2, Section 175-10B for lot redevelopment and minor boathouse expansion. The properties are located on Gateway Road. 20 Gateway Road is this lot, and 14 Gateway Road is the abutting lot, both owned by Assumption Realty Trust. What they're proposing, the lots are depicted on tax map 201 as lots 36 and 39. 201-36, this lot will be removing the existing dwelling that is actually attached to the boathouse, and this portion of the driveway and some of this structure. And what we're doing is we're eliminating 443 square feet of primary structure in the wetland buffer, and another 143 square feet is being removed from the structure setback. And then there is just a small amount of bringing the boathouse in deeper, which increases the setback from 57 feet to 62 square feet in the buffer, and from 4 square feet to 32 square feet in the structure setback. We're also doing some regrading on the abutting lot 14 by eliminating some of this pavement and gravel riprap area here, and through the elimination of this parking area that exists down here. So it's minor regrading that is occurring. So that is, is in a nutshell what we're proposing. We are adding stormwater mitigation to the project, revegetating places that are now structure or gravel surfaces or paved surfaces. I'm sure you got a copy of the Conservation Commission's report where they were in support of it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Let me just read that. The Wolfeboro Conservation Commission noted no objections as proposed and views it as an overall improvement given the reduction of structures within the wetland buffer and the reduction of impervious surface. The commission noted the steepness of the land and that there is a beautiful stream running through the property, which is part of a unique waterfall system. The commission respectfully requests the contractors take steps to ensure the preservation of the stream.
Yes, yes, and on the plan, you'll see we propose construction fencing all the way along the stream and the associated wetland, as well as, we're providing silt fence to capture any sedimentation as they're doing the regrading and revegetation.
So I noted in my packet, I have the whole architectural set for the proposed, but I don't have a copy of that, so I can't really look at anything.
I don't have the architectural set, but I do have the plan.
Oh, weird.
I have a question based on the plan. Both lots owned by the same owner, why haven't they done a boundary line go away? Just merge the two lots?
Because there's a dwelling on this lot.
Is what?
There is a dwelling on this abutting lot.
Oh, there is a dwelling on that lot?
Yes.
The way I read the plan, am I correct in thinking that the motor court is in violation of the setback of the neighboring lot, or is that incorrect?
It is surface, it's parking area now, so yes, it's in violation.
And as proposed, it also will be the new motor court area to the lower?
Oh,
right?
in here, I don't think there's any prohibition from having a driveway in the structure setbacks.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, okay.
So there is a piece of the house, it's a little square over here, and it says first floor elevation 525 in the setback. That,
I'm sorry, Vaughn, what?
it looks like there's a chunk of the new house that is in the side setback. Is that,
So there is an existing structure here, Vaughn, or here, and we're reducing, they're retaining the footprint, the existing footprint, but they're reducing it.
the existing bunkhouses?
Yes, the existing bunkhouse footprint is, a smaller version of it is being incorporated in the proposed structure.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces on the plan, and functionally what it boils down to is the need for a special use permit to regrade and contour for the benefit of stormwater management and stream preservation. You know, if you focus too much on the details on what was boathouse and what's going to be boathouse, it becomes a very complicated thing to try and analyze. And even though the house is getting appreciably larger in the proposal, it's actually less lot coverage overall. So.
Okay, but the situation with the boathouse is it's becoming more conforming by taking some of that. Yeah.
Correct, because I mean, it's really, if you focus only on the yellow, the before and the after shows the compliance with the regulations. There's a lot of non-compliance that is becoming more nearly conforming as the regulations allow on every front, other than, believe it or not, some minor site grading to fix the stormwater
Yeah, and
off
that's
the
what we're
proposed
really
site.
here for.
Correct.
And as far as I can see, you satisfy 17510.
Yeah.
There's no other alternative location,
Right.
and consequently, that this application to
Yeah,
me looks okay.
Can I just ask you, you said something about needing to go to ZBA for the bunkhouse? And I read it someplace, and
No,
but I don't see why you'd have to do that.
yeah, we don't need to go to the ZBA.
Yeah, okay, all right.
If I said that, I misspoke.
Okay, well,
And you,
I think I read
We
it
can go if you'd like.
but whatever.
Thank you, no.
are you taking steps to ensure the preservation of the stream and the unique waterfall structure?
Yes,
Yes, yeah, we've proposed construction fencing to keep any construction activity outside of both the wetlands and the stream, as well as the silt fencing.
So Conservation Commission's concerns are taken care of?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks, Jim.
and then some. The way that the shoreline permits are being issued right now is that all of the silt fence, just to oversimplify it, all of the silt fence has to be installed and inspected in place prior to any other site construction to further that very point.
Okay. Thank you, Tavis.
Is there runoff in towards the brook?
It's primarily toward the lake, but there is, you know, as you can see, some of these contours are kind of running this way, so it's coming down, but that right here is towards the brook. You know, it's going to reach in here where we're regrading, eliminating, you know, this and converting it into vegetation.
What kind of vegetation?
I mean, it'll probably be a series of grasses and shrubs.
Now, I see in your ecological report, your function of the wetlands report, you state, quote, no impact to the actual wetlands is proposed.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion to accept this application as complete?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Everyone in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstention? Okay, open the public hearing. And it does not appear that there's too many public here to discuss this. So, okay, everybody all set with this? Tavis, you want to?
I have 3 recommended conditions. The first, again, just references the application packet. The second is recording fees beholden to the applicant. And then the sum total of the documentation in the packet becomes part of the approval, should that be the direction of the board.
Okay, all right, I'll close the public hearing. Planning board members, any?
I just have one question. Where is the new septic system?
The new septic system is going to go up.
Way up there. Good.
Yes.
Does
Significantly further from the lake.
this include the request by the Conservation Commission to ensure the preservation of the stream?
Oh, okay.
Want to make a motion? I make a motion?
Yes, please.
Happy to move to approve, beg pardon. Case number, we don't have a, case number 2021-13, tax map 201-36 and 39, for a grading within the wetlands special use permit with the 3 conditions as described by the planner.
And as we've already said,
I'll
basically, yeah, go, thank you. And the Conservation Commission is basically in favor of this. Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, abstentions? Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you very
Jim.
much.
All right. Okay, Taylor Community, Bay Street, tax map and lot 203-47. This is case 2021-16 for a site plan review for a community center.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirk Beswick. I represent Taylor Community. I'm the Vice President of Facilities. Tonight with me, I have Nick Schedule. He is the principal engineer for this project, and along with me is also Barbara Woods, one of our board members, just to be here and offer support. We are here for site plan approval for what we are calling an amenities building, which is an accessory use to currently what we have on the Back Bay campus. For those of you familiar with our campus, we have this lot here with basically just single-family cottages scattered throughout the property, approvals for 40 cottages. And what we're talking about is at the very entrance to the Bay Street property, building a single-story wood frame building, much in keeping with the cottages on the property, that would house amenities for our residents. The amenities that we're talking about in this building primarily would be a 3-lane lap pool, a workout center, an open area for meetings, a small dining area, and an outdoor patio. This building would not be a public building. It would strictly be an accessory use to our residents, both on the Sugar Hill campus and on this Back Bay campus. And at this time, we're planning on most of the travel to this building rather would be performed by our own transportation company. So currently on this site plan, we have a clubhouse in use at number 66, which is down here at this part of the current campus. We've been using that cottage, which was constructed at the beginning in 1999, for a clubhouse since its inception. And at this time, we want to expand that use to include a different number of amenities. So we have this proposal in front of you today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nick so he can walk you through specifics about the site plan. If there are questions about the structure, how it'll be used, then I'd be glad to answer those as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Nick Schedule from DuBois & King, Stephen J. Smith & Associates, and I'm a professional engineer working on the project. As Kirk mentioned, the existing conditions, we're looking at the front corner of the site at the intersection of Bay Street and Taylor Drive. Generally, the drainage runs to the east towards Bay Street and to the south towards the abutting property, and then a small portion of the site drains to an existing catch basin, and then that catch basin ties into existing storm drain system that discharges at a detention pond that's on the site. For the proposed utilities, we're going to have public water coming off of Taylor Drive. It's a domestic water. There's no requirement for fire suppression on this building. We've worked that with discussed that with the fire department. And there's existing sewer on Taylor Drive at a manhole adjacent to one of the cottages. So we'll be doing a sewer pump station and force main to tie into the existing sewer system. So it'll be municipal sewer, municipal water, and then underground electric will come from an existing transformer that's on site adjacent to one of the cottages where it was last left off, and underground to a new transformer site, and then underground into the building. We are proposing some site lighting over parking areas. We provided a lighting plan showing downward cast and no spillages over into abutting properties or adjacent right-of-ways. In terms of drainage, we're mostly trying to keep similar drainage patterns for the site, but also utilize the existing stormwater drainage detention pond that's on site. So any of the rooftop runoff will go into a stone drip edge, a 2-foot wide, 4-foot deep stone area, which will allow for as much infiltration as possible. The soils on the site are D soils, so they're limited in terms of their ability to infiltrate. There is ledge on the site as well, so we're to the best of our ability, we're trying to keep the grades as high as possible on the site to limit any need for blasting or ledge removal. Certainly, there's probably going to be some ledge removal needed to get some of the utilities into the building, but we're trying to limit that. We do have some landscape walls that assist with the grading, and then a landscape plan that was provided to show native plantings to provide a buffer for the parking area from Bay Street. And I did try and provide a more detailed grading plan, but also a kind of an exhibit that shows the parking lot in relation to Bay Street and how it's higher up with a couple of small retaining walls. They're just landscape walls, and that they're 30-inch walls, boulder walls, and landscaping in the front. So you can see from that area where we've done some significant landscaping in this area in order to provide protection from the parking lot from public view.
Tavis, there's nothing in the Bay Street district that says anything about parking in front. Is that correct? Like in...
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. I will point out, they did submit a waiver requesting a reduction in parking.
Yeah, yes, yeah, I know.
I think
Frankly, that's because we don't really have a use, we don't have a parking calculation for what this building is. If it were open to the public, you could treat it like a Planet Fitness or some sort of athletic element, but where this is very specific for only existing residents that are going to be shuttled on site, they're requesting a waiver, and I don't have any concerns with that in terms of granting a waiver.
Can we discuss parking and the waiver at this point?
Right, yes.
I'm just kind of struggling with that, Tavis, and applicant as well. On Plan C 1.0, proposed site plan for the amenities building, there is a note 7, which the applicant suggests 27 parking places are required, and you're providing 13.
correct. I think what we were trying to do with that note is come up with the most closely related use that's within the zoning ordinance, and try and just demonstrate that I don't think we want to hide that we're not providing that parking. We've worked with the applicant and the owner to come up with a parking solution that meets their actual needs. So as Tavis mentioned, it's not a facility that's open to the public, so the note that's on the plan would be applicable to a publicly used facility with access, to the general public, whereas this is going to be limited to residents of the community. And in fact, most of the users were expecting to utilize some of the transportation that's provided by Taylor Community for them. So we've provided a kind of a drop-off area that's accessible for their minibuses, and then we've provided a route that allows them to avoid any kind of backing up of those buses, just because it's more of a safety concern for them.
I understand that, and what you're describing is a parking management plan, a way of managing parking needs on site. I understand that you don't need 27 or whatever hypothetical spaces because the majority of the residents using the site are going to be bussed in and out, for which, well done them. You've made a request for for waiver to the parking regs without specifying individually which of those regs you're asking for a waiver from, and you're referencing a parking management plan. You've described the parking management plan, kind of tonight, how it would work. I would be happier if there were something in our file indicating exactly what this parking management plan consisted of. Busing people in residence using internal transportation means to the location, to the facility, and then taking them back, so that we would know for the future that although there are only 13 physical parking places, one of which is ADA accessible, no more than that was really contemplated, because the majority of the use of that site was going to be on-site residents using Taylor home-provided internal transportation.
Right.
Do many of the Taylor residents who would go from the neighborhood here have cars, or are they all bused?
I think it may be a combination of people walking to the facility and/or using their own transportation or being dropped off. I think it's a combination.
I think, sorry, if I may suggest, I would be satisfied with making the description of a parking management plan as part of a condition of approval, subsequent to approval by the board. We all know what they plan on doing. I think we're all in favor of the idea in general. It's a good thing, but to satisfy your request for a waiver, we need to show some kind of parking management plan in place. 175, I think it's 139, requires that. But rather than hang up the application on a technicality, ask for it after the fact after condition subsequent.
Isn't it more the issue that because this is a private organization and the building is going to be used for their private purposes, we need to make a distinction between our normal public parking regulations versus their plan? Isn't that really the issue we're talking about here? Because we don't want to have someone else come with a public building asking for the same kind of thing.
Well, anyone else coming here asking for a similar sort of thing is going to get the same kind of reaction. You're either going to have it in your hand or really show us why we should allow it as a condition subsequent. That's how I would look at it.
I think for all the points you mentioned, we'd be happy to put that into a parking management plan and document it so that it's on file and makes that clear,
Well, another option
for those
is,
things that we've discussed. Yeah.
another option is to look at 175, 139 off-street parking requirements, where it lists any number of uses that are in there, and then at the very bottom, it says other uses. Parking requirements shall be based on parking calculations of similar uses noted above, or the current ITE parking generation requirements for the proposed use, which would basically be a report saying that on average, no more than X number of cars are going to be at a site that is provided by private transportation. Therefore, the board could approve 13 as the required number of stalls.
That's a prediction which they can't make because they have no experience. It's not built yet. If we simply ask them to come up with a parking management plan, we've got 13 spaces, but the majority of the people are going to be coming in on local buses. They're covered.
It says to base it on calculations of similar uses noted above, which is where the... But
I think the challenge is finding the similar use.
It's a circular reference because there is no similar use above, i.e. there is no
plan makes sense
private
to me.
amenities building.
As you suggested, the parking management plan that outlines why we are requesting a 13 spaces because of the public transportation, because of the users living on the same parcel. I think all of those things are easily documented in a memorandum.
And that's part of site plan review, so.
Yes, right.
I'd like to just explain how we propose to do this. It may be a little confusing because with the acquisition of Sugar Hill, about 1.5 miles up the road, we are offering a shuttle service for those residents and the 24 cottages at Back Bay. So we're taking them to doctor's appointments, we're taking them downtown for lunch, we're taking them for church services and that type of thing. And we're also just running a shuttle. So if someone says, hey, can you take me down to the pool or down to the amenities building, this bus will be running at all times, picking them up. And as Barbara mentioned to me while I was sitting back here, they walk our campus all the time. A high percentage of these people in nice weather will be walking down to this amenities building. So we're just not anticipating there's going to be a lot of need. I'm not sure there's really a need for a parking management plan, but if that's a requirement of what this board wants to see, we can put something together.
It's not a requirement of what we want to see, Kirk. It's a requirement of the ordinances that we have to uphold. So we sort of have to ask for something like that. We asked for it subsequent because it didn't come to us in advance. So asking for it subsequent kind of offers you guys a break.
And to that end, when I received the application, I accepted the waiver as written to all parking requirements, i.e. the sum total of 175, 139, based on their support with the proposed use is unique and accessory to existing senior housing. Majority of users will receive transportation to and from the facility. So perhaps adding a general waiver to all parking requirements, provided that it be received transportation to and from the facility from Taylor Community Shuttles, would address the waiver of the parking in its entirety. Just another option for the board.
I would be worried to waive all parking
Right.
requirements based on the request for a waiver tonight, which doesn't specify that at all, simply says request for waiver from parking requirements, which could be construed as everything, both in site plan and in regular ordinances. That's too much of a blanket waiver from my comfort. I would be happier if we were to simply grant the waiver request and tie it to the subsequent condition that a parking management plan be produced.
Right.
That way we're covered for the future.
Understood. Would it be for that condition subsequent to be evaluated by the entire board, question mark?
You mean a debate tonight, whether they want to do that or not, or I don't know.
No. If the board were to make it a condition subsequent that they come back with said management plan,
Yes.
I think the board should decide if the board wants to review it.
No, I think the planner should review that.
Okay. Earlier I heard you say the board. That's why I was just wondering. I may have just heard.
You're listening to what I'm saying much better than I'm listening to what I'm saying. I think it would be much better if the planner were to review the proposed parking management plan, rather than
For
making
this specific building.
Yeah, for this specific use, because otherwise they're going to have to wait for the next time we show up,
That's why
and I don't want that to happen.
Okay, all right.
for the board's peace of mind, if it looks dissimilar to what I'm hearing in the discussion, it will come back before it goes forward.
Okay, go ahead, John.
So is there a foundation? Is there a subterranean foundation?
There'd be frost walls, but it's a slab
Okay.
construction.
So what's the capacity of the building when it's in peak? How many people are in there? You're gonna have a capacity limit.
Calculation yet? We're just finishing, we have the architectural done. So far, we anticipate it won't need an occupancy permit, not an occupancy, it won't be exceeding 50 people at any one time, because the lap pool will only be 3-lane lap pool, so there won't be a lot of people out there. There may be occasional classes. The workout room will only hold a few folks at a time, and occasionally we may have a movie there with some of the residents and that type of function. We don't anticipate a lot of folks in this at one time. If we had envisioned having 100 people in here, obviously the 13 parking places wouldn't have worked out very well. I can't give you an exact number for what the total personal occupancy is at this particular time.
But wouldn't you say that would have a relation to the parking, depending on how many? No? Tavis is shaking your head, so.
Well, it's not relative when we're busing those people in. So, the parking, if we have 30 people there and we bust them all down there, we wouldn't have anybody in the parking lot.
I would say absolutely if it were open to the public. That's the whole premise of the parking regulations. Where if you had a building that could have 200 people and they were requesting 13 parking spaces, I think we'd be having a very different dialogue right now.
So we don't think that people from Sugar Hill will want to go down there?
Yes, we're really hoping that they want to. That's why we're building it. But everything's done on a reservation basis, John. So if they want to ride down there, they're going to call, make a reservation. We'll know that they're going to go down, that type of thing.
Good.
I have another question.
Yep.
Regarding snow storage, looking at your landscaping plan and then your general site plan showing the location for snow storage, are you going to be pushing snow into the plantings that you plan on putting up there? It looks like that's kind of where the plantings are going, in the area that you had delineated for snow storage.
So we have larger trees, which would have, understory area that can provide snow storage. And similarly, along these areas where, those plantings are spread out enough to provide ground area for that snow storage.
You'll have continual management problems if you're going to be treating your parking area with some kind of snow melt device and then pushing that snow up to where the plantings are. It's going to percolate into the ground and negatively affect the health of those plantings. I guess you'll have to watch that as the years go by, make sure that they don't start dying on you.
Yeah, snow storage is one of my favorite topics because I wind up coming and plowing in the Wolfeboro campuses a lot. So I hear you, and we'll make sure we address that.
Thank you, Kirk.
Okay.
I have a question. I see that the whole architectural guideline thing is just regurgitated here, but would it be beneficial to have the architects go through, explain how they're doing this? Like, I have no information on materials here. That's a critical.
I don't know if they know. I don't think they knew when they turned it in. They might know now.
Floor plan.
Yeah, so we don't know if it's an orange metal roof or, you know.
Yeah, I can address that. We're still working through some of the details, but this is going to be like a vinyl exterior that's going to look like clapboard. We're going to do a 30 to 50 year shingle roof on this. So it'll be very much in keeping with what we already have on campus in terms of a cottage type look. When the architect, Peter Stewart, worked on this, they worked on the roof line to try and blend it in with the current, single story wood frame, cottagey type look that we have now. They're all going to be, wood frame structure that'll have outboard insulation to meet the R factor that we need for today's construction. But other than that, it's going to be very simple construction, very simple materials. Truss roof.
So I appreciate that, but I'm just thinking as a process, have some narrative or something to go along with this list that comes from the architect or something.
I just started putting in the list because it's a new thing for site plan to
No,
require.
I know it's new, but I'm just thinking of how going forward, it's one thing to list it, to say, yeah, we're going to do it. That looks like it complies, but you're not the architect and we don't have a list of materials here.
I don't know what the board envisioned by making the architectural design guidelines a requirement at site plan review. In fact, it's not part of this application, but I've had any number of people come in and say, I just need site plan approval. I don't know what the building's going to look like yet, but now I have to know the full design phase before getting site plan approval. Did the board think of that? So,
The timing, you mean?
correct.
Well, remember that these are in site plan review and they are subject to board waiver. I would imagine you could tell your clients when they come to present to the board, they cover as many points on design guidelines as they can, and those they can't somehow explain. And then request a waiver for those that they need a waiver from, or a waiver from all of them if they feel that that's necessary
And
too.
then typically what I would do, as you're aware, when I put a code section in, it's just for guidance, and then I will highlight which areas are applicable. In design guidelines, it's the whole thing.
So a narrative would be useful.
Yeah.
I mean, they've spent time designing it. They must know pretty straightforward what the answers are to these.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware that that would be a requirement, so we weren't prepared. We did everything in advance, but I didn't ask them to prepare that for the board at this time. I can get that, certainly.
I don't think it will be complicated. I think, it's just a process question.
Yeah.
You want to make that a condition subsequent also, so that we don't stand in the way of this application?
Well,
Or do you want them to come back again?
Well, subsequent and precedent, I need to know how this board looks at them. Typically, when I hear precedent and subsequent, it's prior to recordation and subsequent to recordation.
Recordation,
Of the plan, of the Mylar.
not approval.
Correct.
My thought would have been subsequent to, to approval prior to recordation. How can we record
For example,
application which has not got all of its conditions fulfilled?
if you were to further your thought on snow storage areas and say, we'd like, the landscaping to be revised to include a larger open area for snow storage in the southeast corner of the parking area, that would be precedent, so they need to revise the plan prior to recording. It meets all of the parameters, but you're modifying the illustrated site.
Fine,
So that would be before recording.
fine. But in the case of the parking management plan,
Prior to building permit.
prior to building permit, subsequent to recordation,
It's just a condition of approval.
just a condition of approval. And if we grant waivers on design guidelines tonight, that's also a condition subsequent on, beg
Well,
pardon.
the granting the waiver to the parking would be a waiver to the parking requirements for determination of a complete application with the proviso that there's going to be a condition that the applicant provide a parking management plan prior to building permit.
But we can also at the same time waive design guidelines under the same conditions prior to the actual hearing of the application.
Correct.
I'd be happy to make that motion. Do you want motions for waivers now?
Yes,
All right, I guess we have two of them then.
yep, right.
The first one, I propose, I make a motion that the board grant a waiver for parking requirements as requested by the applicant, dependent upon receipt of an executed parking management plan according to 175-138, presented to the planner, period.
Presented and approved by the planner? I mean, what if it's like Yertle the Turtle, where they're just putting cars on top of cars?
For review and acceptance.
Yeah.
Review and acceptance, that's fine.
Receipt,
Don't make it hard.
okay,
But I hear what you're
and acceptance. Okay. All right, that's your motion?
That's my motion.
Oh, okay. Does anybody want to second that?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of granting the waiver as Mike just indicated, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, and then,
I'll also propose that this board waive the requirements of the design guidelines as listed in 173-19. You want a narrative to be presented?
Yeah,
to you?
I'm uncomfortable with waiving them.
Only
It
for
is
the-
on Bay Street. It's not as if it's back in the woods like the last project. I think it, you know, what we see here looks traditional and broken up in pieces and not offensive, but we don't know anything about materials, for instance.
What I've heard discussed was perhaps a waiver to 173-19 premised on the submitted architectural drawings with a materials list to include that as presented at the meeting, to be included in the file.
Any subsequent changes, because they haven't decided yet, would have to remain, you know, traditional New England look.
And any revisions to said list should be in conformance with the design guidelines.
Right.
Why don't you go back and rewind that tape and turn it into a suggested waiver that we can then adopt as a board?
Recommended motion to waive section 173-19 design guidelines, provided the applicant present for the file a materials list for siding, roofing, and other exterior materials. Any subsequent revision to said list shall be consistent with the design guidelines of 173-19.
I move to,
Is that good for you?
yeah, I think that works.
And you adopt,
So moved, I would waive based on those conditions and not repeating them.
did you get them?
Can someone write this down for me?
That's going to be in the,
It's not going to be scary. Did you get them? It's on tape. And I'll second that.
okay, all right, motion has been made and seconded on the design guidelines. Everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Who was the second?
I second it.
Mike?
You proposed, I seconded.
One, Mike.
I first.
Okay, all right, so now the application is considered complete.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, all right, I'm going to open the public hearing. What can we say? All Right, okay, Tavis, do you have some conditions for us to
So
consider?
recommended condition, number one, again, references to plan set. 2, applicant needs to submit a Mylar for recording. Applicant, now, I'm going to strike the 3rd proposed condition because I completely overlooked the snow storage that was on the plan. 4, applicant responsible for all recording fees. 5, the packet is the packet as approved, and that's all I have. Originally, I had recommended the parking management plan as an additional condition, but that was already included as part of the waiver.
Let's make it a condition. I'd like
Yes,
it
right.
underlined.
Okay, so the conditions will then be 1, 2, 3.
3 will be your parking management plan.
3 is the parking management plan for waiver. Discussion.
Okay,
It'll flush out applicant to be responsible for parking management plan.
Okay, that'll be fine.
right, okay, and what about the design guidelines?
That's a simple waiver.
Okay.
Did you want
Yeah,
a
that-
narrative?
Oh, okay, that's right, yeah.
Well, the motion was to accept the a waiver to the design guidelines with the acceptance of the rendering and a synopsis list of the materials as described tonight.
Which will be in the application for building permit.
Correct.
Right.
So we don't really need to state anything
Oh,
further.
okay, all right. Okay, so everybody's all set with those conditions? Okay,
I'll be happy to move to approve, beg pardon, case number 2021-16, tax map 203-47, 11 Taylor Court, Taylor Community, Bay Street, Wolfeboro, site plan review for construction of an amenities building with the 5 conditions as delineated by the planner.
okay,
I
Somebody
second
want a
that and applaud the fact that they broke down a potentially big, massive building into nice New England-looking pieces.
okay, so that was the second, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Oh, okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right, thank you very much, folks.
You guys are on fire.
Yes.
Okay, public comments. No public comments. Okay, other business. Impact fees.
I was just going to update the board. I have had some additional correspondence with Bruce Mayberry. As I was advised by the town manager that the 2022 budget needed to reflect the request for those monies to cover the part 2 of the impact fees. Mr. Mayberry responded that he will be retired and unable to do that work in 2022. I have since responded to him that I hope he enjoys his retirement and that he would be forthwith with a list of his recommendations or referrals so that we can move forward with that work. And I will report back to the board when I receive such a list or start looking.
That's a real lost opportunity.
Okay. All right. The draft minutes from July.
The other thing is the last time we ended up talking about the master plan
Yep.
implementation, and it had been suggested that we have a committee which is not going to be, might be 6 and 10 people. And so therefore we are sort of limiting the number just so that it works efficiently, and that the suggestion, I think, to have it from a number of the people from planning board who were part of the committees would be part of it, and also some of the participants of those. A reasonable plan?
I thought the number 5 seemed like a good number.
Like 7 myself.
I think 5 to 7, 5 to 8, somewhere in there, and we can make a decision as to what we do. But 10 is too unwieldy, probably.
I think it's important that we bring people in who are not part of this internal process here from the community, rather than keeping it all in-house. Often, the danger is that you put me on this committee, I'm going to be arguing for careful attention to the community center. That's my thing. That's not necessarily a good thing.
Have you looked into Taylor Homes?
I tell you, when I saw that application, my heart dropped because I said, geez, they're going to get one before we do. Yep, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Bring somebody in from the outside, they may have entirely different priorities than mine, so that's my only concern for having outsiders in.
When we talked about this the last time, we said we were talking about one meeting a year. Are you still thinking that, Peter?
I would say it's one meeting unless we find we need to meet more. That would be the aim, so that it's not taking a huge amount of time. And I think that in some ways we're looking at the checkoffs and looking at the issues, and I don't imagine it's going to take very long, but it is a good look at what is actually being done. And if we need more meeting time, then we can.
Well, really, it's more of a motivational thing, isn't it? I mean, back to the various groups and...
And the data can be all presented to the members of the committee before they get there, so it should be a relatively straightforward issue, and we look to where there are issues and then point them out to the people who are responsible.
Okay. Okay, how do you feel about that, Tavis?
I guess my gut reaction is I'm not sure what one meeting a year accomplishes. I'm not saying it needs to be 12, but it almost seems quarterly if people are able to, the group is able to say, okay, what is Public Works doing? What is the electric department doing? You know, it's easy for the board to, whether it be this board or the committee, to say, okay, this is what the implementation matrix looks like. This is what projects were submitted to CIP. Of those, these were then voted on by the taxpayers and the voters. Which ones then are evolving, and being able to touchstone on those projects and say it's working or it's not.
I would actually suggest, though, that if you're meeting quarterly, there's not going to be enough progress between meetings. And so
Correct.
Therefore it may be
quarterly would be a max, but it seems pre-CIP and
two times a year probably is a good way to go.
I was going to suggest twice a year.
Okay. All right. So, well, the CIP, how many people do we have? 3 outside?
Oh, we have 4 outsiders from CIP.
Yeah, with Bob. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we could try and get 4 people. Peter?
Yep.
Okay, 4 people?
4 people.
Okay, 3 planning board members?
And I think we should, I'd say at least 2, but 3 may be better. But I think that representatives from the committees may be useful, because that ends up showing that your input is worthwhile.
Okay.
So I would say that if we send an invitation out to the people who are on those committees, that would be the place to start. They're pretty representative of the town. And then if we get 10 people saying they want to, then we choose.
So as I understood, I was going to help you with email addresses so you could compose that email. Okay.
Hey, can you do a little ad to someplace in the Granite State News or?
Do a website, we could do a news article, we could put something in the paper.
You could just personally email people who are on some of the master plan committees, members of the public, and ask them specifically.
Okay.
Save the money from the advertisement.
Okay, but it didn't seem to go along with what you said earlier. People from the outside.
Well, yeah, we had people from the outside who were on the master plan implementation.
Right.
committees. I was concerned that we had people that were not members of the planning board.
Okay, so we don't need an ad then? Why don't we
To
see
see
if we
what the
can,
success is without an ad.
If we don't get enough people, we can ask broader base.
okay, why don't you all give it some thought and at our next meeting, we can make about that.
So I have a question. The work we did on reaching out and asking for people's top 3 priorities, how are we doing against that effort?
That will be part of the first committee meeting.
Yeah, they're
Have those top priorities been
They're
done?
going to be that's the first year, that's what they're going to do is follow up
On those top 3.
Right. Okay, so can everybody give it some thought and make a decision? All right, great. Okay,
Before we start with the minutes, will we be looking at the question of housing opportunity zones and declaring where in the town we want to declare housing opportunity zones exist? In order to get that started, we have to put that onto the ballot for next year. Unless we wanted to sit on our hands and do nothing for another year, it's an opportunity for the town to declare particular zoning districts in the town housing opportunity zones. Once they're so declared by a town vote of the public, the selectmen can then decide what kind of property tax relief can be given to people, developers who want to put up workforce housing, low-cost housing in those particular zones. Selectmen will have the power, but only once the town votes on which zones are to be declared housing opportunity zones. This is a new piece of legislation. I think it requires some thought by the board.
Is that term defined somewhere?
Yeah, in the new, it's in remember 79E where they gave tax abatements for people who renovated historic barns. That's now been expanded with a brand new paragraph, which allows towns to declare parts of themselves housing opportunity zones, where developers who are putting in low-cost housing can obtain abatements on property tax from the selectmen. The selectmen's job will be to decide what kind of percentage the abatement's going to be, but the system only works when the areas are declared by the town itself housing opportunity zones. So in order for us to tell the town to have this opportunity, it would be a good idea for the board to think where in the town housing opportunity zones should be declared.
So I guess the question is, what is the appropriate area of town for workforce housing?
Well, that's what we need to discuss, isn't it? I mean, clearly, downtown is probably not it. Because who's going to put up workforce housing right next to Blacks, for example, or tear down something that's existing?
So you're presuming that that's going to be ugly and awful. It may be wonderful. I mean, we have a lot of sort of tenement-type buildings downtown already.
No, I'm not assuming anything like that of the sort. I'm assuming that people who are going to be putting in workforce housing are going to be wanting to look for fairly substantial lots, an acre or 2, 3, 4, 5 or more, that they're going to want to have land that is not the most expensive to build on in town.
But you're also thinking not single detached units.
And I'm also thinking not necessarily tied to town water and sewer.
So I think it would be a good workshop item.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, to make sure that it does get the board's attention.
When we have that workshop, can we have the language, whatever that housing opportunity zone language is, so we know what we're talking about?
I can give it to you at any time.
Okay, but Tavis, could you put that on the next agenda then? Okay, all right.
It's just a new paragraph in 79E, paragraph 4B.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we? All right, the July 20th minutes.
I have a number of corrections. Page 4, paragraph beginning Mike Hodder. second sentence, second line, beg pardon, after the word review, insert the planning board. And then towards the end of that sentence, after the word impartial, insert the word reviews. Okay.
Okay.
Page 6. Paragraph Mike Hodder, once again. Sentence that begins, John Thurston believed, and John, correct me if I'm wrong. Insert after 17596J, the words should be a permitted use by right, and made a motion that it should stay, and then delete under special exceptions and insert that way. If I remember correctly, you were arguing that that should be a use by right. The next page, page 7, first line, delete the word under. And then third line, insert the words after ETC, referenced in the revised Pine Hill Road Development District Ordinance.
Where is this?
Page 7, second line, ends in the word ETC.
C period.
Correct. Insert after that, referenced in the revised Pine Hill Road Development District Ordinance. And then in 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line, after the word moot, insert a period, and delete, and they be renumbered. The next paragraph, in particular, comma, delete the capital letter A, change that to adult-oriented business provision, comma.
Does that to mean in particular, comma, 175.53, adult-oriented business?
Yeah. And then finally, the question for the chairwoman on page 9 under other. Have you and Tavis met with Linda regarding the police?
No, we're going to the police commission.
Police commission? Have you, what, is that scheduled?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, as long as it's scheduled.
Remember,
Up to the club.
it's the third. I honestly can't remember. It's
I don't even remember seeing a date, but I know that it was
right,
passed on and the date was
just
created.
sort of went in.
All right, thank you for the
okay.
time on
I did
that.
write it down.
That's good, I do that too, helpful.
Yeah, okay.
So I have, are you done, Mike?
I'm done.
So I have one on page 3. I want to take the hic out of my bottom of the page paragraph and just say, period after issue, capital she, and has clearly spoken and is opposed. Not as clearly spoke as being.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Move to approve.
As
As amended, thank you.
Okay.
second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor with the corrections, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Anything else, folks?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, great. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay, thank you.
9.
Yes, right, I see that.